sophomore Division II champion of youth championships, actually, Division II Kentucky Wesleyan. A great story. He's going to tell you a lot about his life and kind of what led him to where he is today. And it's almost several different stories within the story. I'll let him tell you about his upbringing, but really quickly, I'll get very excited about the fact that you have a lot of sport athletes here, a lot of athletes, a lot of academic success in this room, a lot of business majors, a lot of sport business majors, but people who are interested in not only competing at a high level at a great Division II school, but also succeeding after school. And that's what we're really concerned with. So that's why we are very excited to have George here just to kind of join us for our podcast. So that's good. I'll get the link up for that really quickly. But we'll have some time for some questions at the end for sure. But obviously, when we bring someone like this in, it's not just because he likes students, it's not just because he played a sport, but it's also because he's done so many different things in his life. He's a good human being, he's a great athlete, he's a great businessman, but also he wants to give back. And that's kind of what we're excited about. So as you think about your plans, however big they are, always think about what you want your your mission you want to have in life. And certainly if you follow anything like Tinsley here, you'll be doing very, very well. So thank you, George. Appreciate it. And the floor is yours. Thank you. Thank you.
I will start. Can you hear me? Yeah. Hear what's up. I'm excited about being here. It's Tom got in touch with me a month or so ago and asked me whether I'd be willing to come over and speak to some of the student athletes here. And I said yes right away because this is what I enjoy doing. I really get excited about this. So the success of me being here, I'm going to put that on you from the standpoint that I want you athletes, business majors, and so forth to ask me questions as I get into the after my presentation, if you will, which is not a formal presentation. I'm here to relate to you so that you can see what you can do equally or even better. It's on you. You can do it. So I want you to prepare yourselves. Please ask some questions, and we'll go from there. How many basketball players do we have here? Raise your hands up, okay. How many soccer players? No soccer, one soccer, two soccer. Okay, what else? We have volleyball. Practice. Practicing, okay, all right. What other sport do we have in South? Lacrosse? I saw somebody was a practice here when they walked in the building. What else do we have?
We got baseball.
Swimming, baseball?
Hockey, baseball.
Pickleball? I'm going to take my jacket off so you can see the red, right? And to get relaxed. So, a little history about me. Can you hear me in the back? Yeah. A little history about me to let you know how it all began with me, and maybe some of you can identify with it. It wasn't all, I didn't grow up went born with a silver spoon, with finances, with resources. My early beginnings was a very tough situation. My mother left me with a babysitter. That babysitter just happened to be 65 years old, couldn't read or write, walked with a crutch, and we got a $65 check a month, and that's what we survived off of, which was somewhat difficult. She made an X, and I filled in her name. When I was old enough to do that, we had a little check, our little account running at the corner grocery store where we bought food, and that's the way we survived. We lived in a one room, one bed, and probably about 15 by 30, probably not 30, but 15 by 20, and we survived. Everything, all utilities were outside of the door in the cold. So for the first 13 years of my life, it was her and I. And I developed skills, not knowing it, I developed skills during that particular time that helped me survive, that helped me today. Because starting around 5 years old, I had to actually take care of her. We were taking care of each other. But she loved me, took care of me like her own son. I called her Mama. I took her name. My original name was Penny Baker. And somewhere along the line, it changed from Penny Baker to Tinsley. And she was my mother. But everybody in the neighborhood knew that there was no way that she was my mother. So there was a lot of things going on in the hood, where I grew up in an area called Smoketown in Louisville, Kentucky. But along came height, I grew, and along came basketball and other sports. And those particular resources start opening doors for me, which I had no idea where it was going to lead. But I fell in love with the game. I fell in love with everything that was competitive. Excuse me, because I wanted to succeed. During those days, we had integration that took place in Louisville, Kentucky, which is where I'm from. And so moving from one school to the other, from the black school to the white school, most of the students that went into the new school were put back a year because academically we were on the same level that the white schools were, as far as educational material. And of course, I'm still growing, right? So all of a sudden I go back one year and all the students get shorter. But point being is that I had to deal with that. I had to really take that obstacle and turn it into an opportunity. My sixth grade school teacher told me one day, she said, "You didn't even just quit school. You're not gonna make it. Just quit school." Somewhere inside that tick, I was upset, but I put a smile on my face, went back, sat down, and I said, "I'm gonna show her, that I can do this." And from that point on, as I went into high school and got a scholarship to college, I always went back to that elementary school to let her know, "Hey, I got a scholarship to college. I won a national championship as a freshman." She didn't know what that was, but I had to let her know, and so forth. So I didn't do that in the evil way, but I wanted to let her know that she made a mistake in trying to put me in a certain category. And those things are going to happen to you in life. People will look at you, they'll make a decision about you, especially if you don't get a chance to interact with them. They'll make a decision on you. So I tell youngsters all the time, your first impression is the lasting impression. So always, in any kind of situation, make sure that you give a good first impression. And that's head to toe. And what comes out of your mouth, and how you dress, how you carry yourself. Because that has a lot to do with what that door opens up, what you'll be able to do. Excuse me. So, basketball and track, for me, was a way out. And I started participating in the sport. It became pretty doggone good. And we had other good players, some even better than me, that brought a lot of attention. Different situations took place. Let me back up for a second. As I said, I lived with Mama until I was 13. Well, I was playing on the concrete in Smoketown, and I was going through tennis shoes like crazy. And so I asked Mama when she got her a $65 check, if I could get another pair of brand new Chuck Taylor All-Stars. Because before that, you just made do whatever. And Chuck Taylor All-Stars at that time cost $1.95. $1.95, but they only lasted about 2 weeks. So Mama gave me the money to go get those shoes, and they only had size 11s. I was wearing 13s then, so I made the 11s fit, right? But when I got back home, excited to let Mama know what had gone on, she had passed away. So that was the very first major obstacle that I had to deal with because I had no one else. Knew of no one else, no other family and so forth. But her son took me in with him, he and his wife. They had one bed, one room, and a little kitchenette. And he worked at night, she worked during the day. So her and I slept in the same bed at night. Neither one of us were too excited about that. You know? But once again, that's another one of those character building scenarios that taught me how to handle myself in some awkward, very awkward situations. So I wanted to let you know that, to give you a little sense of where my early beginnings came from. Excuse me. So going to college, self-esteem and so forth started growing. We won the national championship my very first year. I started as a freshman, and the championship game that we played against Walt Frazier, who was the star of the Southern Illinois University team. And we played the whole first five. The first five played the entire game. I just realized that about 10 years ago. Dick O'Neill made me aware of that talk. But that was probably the biggest success that I'd ever experienced in life. And with that, it opened up the doors to a lot of relationships within the community, a lot of relationships within the basketball community as well. And we got the opportunity to travel to Europe and Africa to teach basketball during the summer as goodwill ambassadors as an 18-year-old. The first country we landed in was Fort Lamine, Chad, which is no longer Fort Lamine, Chad. But we landed there, and while we practiced early in the morning because the temperature was so hot over there, we practiced early in the morning. Very first practice, those of you who may know a little bit about history, the Biafran War started that same day. And this is about a mile away, fighting guns and everything else. 18 years old, I was a nervous wreck. And basketball was the last thing I was thinking about. And getting home, trying to understand how I was going to get home was a big challenge. But during that time, there was probably there were 3 African Americans on the team. The rest of the team was white. And we're playing in a literally all-white country of Africa. Those experiences helped each one of us grow and become friends, great friends. And these were guys that came out of Madisonville, Kentucky, Nebo, Kentucky, and so forth, who'd never even seen a black person. So all of a sudden, we're together every day on the course, and we become great friends, and we are still today great friends. And it helped us the very next year and moving forward to win more championships. We won 3 championships out of those 4 years, and one time we came in 3rd place, and we lost a game in the semifinals. I didn't play that game, so I can't take credit for it. I didn't lose my 4 years of college in the finals. I tell friends about that all the time. But those 4 years at Kentucky Wesleyan, which is a Division II school, just like Norfolk Southern, small campus, 750 students, and we got to know everybody. Students came in from all over the country, and we became friends. We learned how to get along, and that was during the terrible times during the 60s, mid to late 60s, when there were a lot of racial things going on and so forth. That things got real crazy. But that group of us, we came together and still, as I said today, still maintain a great relationship. Academically, I almost flunked out my first year because I didn't understand how to study. I didn't understand what it took to be a college student. No one telling you to get up, no one telling you got to go to class, no one telling you different things, but I love basketball, and I was on a scholarship, so I had to make some adjustments real quick. And after coming back from traveling to Africa, which I was on probation. I had to get back off of probation by the first basketball practice, which I did, and eventually made the dean's list. And eventually won the Oak and Ivy Award, which is the highest honor that you receive at Kentucky Wesleyan. During that time, I was the first African-American athlete to actually win that. I was the first African-American athlete at the time to actually graduate from Kentucky Wesleyan within a 4-year period. So coming from almost flunking out to that point took a big, major turnaround. I joined a Jewish fraternity. You couldn't belong, there was no black fraternities on campus, so I joined a Jewish fraternity, Sigma Alpha Mu. I don't know if you have Sigma Alpha Mu here, but I learned how to study, I learned how to do, prepare for tests and so forth. And that group of individuals that I joined in with the Jewish fraternity, we're still friends today. In fact, I have to go back next week and spread some ashes on back at the campus. One of the guys who passed away from in that fraternity. So this experience that you're going through today in college, you're meeting some great people, establish some relationships, get to know one another, understand what you want to do in life and where you want to go, maintain relationships. You never know where it's going to come in handy somewhere down the road. So spend time with each other, get to know each other, get to know and understand and appreciate where each of you come from and where you're going, what your goals are. You may be able to help one another going down the road. So after college, I got drafted 3 times. I got drafted into the Army, I got drafted into the NBA, I got drafted into the ABA. Which one do you think I took? I took the ABA, right? Because the American Basketball Association for you youngsters, during that time we had 2 leagues, the NBA and the ABA. The ABA was a fledgling league, but great players in that league, but in professional basketball, it's all business. No matter what anybody says, it's business. And so they were offering money, signing in at first through 4 rounds, signing bonuses, contracts. The NBA, you were Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who came out the same year I did, and a few guys at that number 1 level that got contracts, got no-cut contracts, got money, big money. We, in the ABA, you got the money, but excuse me, it was typically a 1-year contract. So I signed with the ABA, poor young man, grabbed the money and ran. In the ABA, during those days, when you got your check, you went right straight to the bank and cashed that check. Make sure it didn't bounce. Because, as I said, I signed with Oakland of the ABA. By the time I was to report to camp, Oakland had moved to Washington. The team had already folded. That's a bad sign, bad way to start, right? So that was the beginning. 5 games into the season, I got traded to get back to Kentucky, which was my home. And the coach of the Kentucky team was my high school coach, which some of you may say, well, it's a good deal. No, it wasn't, because he still saw me as a defensive player, rebounder, and all that. I had learned how to put the ball in the hoop. Yeah, that's what you get paid for, right? So I came out of college averaging 24 points a game through my senior year, but we had 2 guys that were 2 of the best 3-point shooters in the ABA during that time. So my career in the ABA was a short career, but it was one that once again learned, built character, formed relationships, understood the game from the standpoint of putting butts in seats, and that's what it was all about. If you went to a major college, the University of Kentucky, or one of the major D1 schools, then teams were after you because you were going to bring in those fans. If you went to Division II school or NAIA school and so forth, you had to be a hell of a player, and have something special to be able to stick it out. So the ABA was a very exciting league, and that's the NBA today. As you see, the 3-point, the fast pace of the game and so forth, that all came from the ABA. Someone asked me earlier today who's one of the greatest players that I've ever played with, and who I think the great player was Julius Erving, Dr. J. I had an opportunity to play with him, play against him, and we're good friends today. Later on in life, I became president of the NBA Retired Players Association, which, and I was a treasurer before that, which I signed all of their marketing checks. So I knew how much everybody was making as a signature there. and so forth. So getting back involved with the NBA, with the NBA, and still being involved with the NBA has been a great experience because the older players and the younger players are still able to stay in contact with and maintain a relationship. Now, so that's my early career in athletics, if you will, from a participation standpoint. I go back, I get cut from New York and decide that I'm one of the few guys who had an education, rather than going trying out for another team. I just got married, and I had to take care of a wife, so I decided to get a job teaching and coaching. And that opened up more doors, more experiences, and so forth. So those experiences, once again, added on to the other experiences, carried over to every next step in life. You know, how to work together as a team, how to coach, how to relate to your players, how to win, how to lose. Right? All that was happening during that time, which will transition to where I'm going to get to a little bit later. So, I coached for 3 years, and then the FBI came and called. They wanted to hire me as an agent, and I took it pretty serious and looked at it, went through the process. But at the same time, Kentucky Fried Chicken, a friend of mine who played in the NBA, reached out to me about a job opportunity with KFC, and KFC, the FBI, getting shot at. Making more money, I'm going to KFC. so that's what happened there. And lo and behold, I was going to be one of the training instructors at KFC, working with the franchisees. I did not know that I was going to be working alongside the Colonel, the real Colonel himself. So he and I were responsible for teaching these new franchisees who were coming into the system. Now, how does that work, right? Me versus the Colonel. Who are they going to listen to? So anyway, I learned as quick as I could, pulling on all those skills that I had developed from playing basketball, from track, from growing up in a tough neighborhood, from being on my own, and so forth. I was able to use all of that, and when I jumped into that situation with the Colonel, because I got to tell you, my knees were shaking the first time I met him, and I didn't know what to do. Matter of fact, I introduced myself to him, and he already knew who I was and so forth. So we took pictures and all that, but that turned out to be a great experience. I learned, didn't know anything about business at all. I wasn't fortunate to go to major in business. I was an education major. I wanted to be a teacher and coach. So what you're doing today, business-wise, learning about business, learning how business works, learning the economics, and also participating in sports, that's a perfect world in my mind that's going to help you. I don't care what you decide to do. No matter what you decide to do, you put that together. Learning how to win, lose, how to deal with tough situations, how to walk into a situation, how to prepare for a game, how to prepare for a job interview, all of the things that it takes to be successful in the business world. I think that's going to bode well for you. It's going to bode well. You don't have to be an All-American. You don't have to be an All-Star. You just have to fall back and remember what you've gone through. You got up, you went to practice. You practiced hard. You went to lunch, you went to class, because you knew if you don't go to class, you're going to lose your scholarship, you can't play if you're not eligible. Then you go home, you study, you get back up and start over again, right? Well, in business, that's the same thing you're going to have to do. You're going to have to meet the man every morning and be on your best game. You can't be hungover. You can't be in another world. You got to be focused. So what you're learning today will really help you. Because when I stepped into the KFC, all of a sudden, a whole new world started opening up. I'm working with millionaires. Because you don't become a KFC franchisee unless you got I'm talking about those days, 70s, unless you have $1 million in cash to be liquid, to be able to get a franchise, to qualify for a franchise, to get started, to be able to make it through the first 3 years of business, because most businesses fail in the first 3 years. If you didn't know that's what happens largely in the restaurant industry in particular. So that whole experience really helped me and prepared me as I worked 8 years with KFC in various different departments. Okay. Now, all of those skills, and all those experiences that I went through, once I got my first franchise, first KFC, that I opened over in Auburndale, Florida, and I opened it. Became the number one KFC in the nation because I was able to put all those skills, coaching, dealing with the community, interacting with the business community, and understanding how to run the business sharply, smartly. Got to remember, I had a wife too. She helped me out. If anybody recorded that, make sure she hears that. but we opened with a bang because we developed the store correctly based off of my experiences. And the restaurant, as I said, for Auburndale, 10,000 people or less, we were doing $1 million plus the first year. The average KFC was doing 650,000 at the time. So we were doing $1 million. We were really successful. 4 years down the road, and three more stores, Haines City, Baseball, and Boardwalk that we opened. One April morning, I got a call and said, Mr. Tinsley, your restaurant is on fire. And I said, okay, it's April Fool's, laid it on back down. About 5 minutes later, I got another call. Mr. Tinsley, your restaurant is on fire. There's fire engines there and the whole thing. So I jumped up and made a beeline to the restaurant, and flames were 20 feet above the ceiling. That $1 million restaurant with 45 employees working in that restaurant had burned down to the ground. So, average business person may, pull a plug, not know what to do. But because of all those experiences I've talked about, I was able to pull from those tough situations and make some decisions that prepared me for the next step, which I don't know if God was helping me out, I'm sure He was, but as I was standing there watching the restaurant burn down and all these people up and down the street, traffic backed up and so forth, out of all of that, I saw this little lunch truck. And that was lined up. There were 2 or 3 of them when they were going to make a delivery. So the thought came to me, my restaurant burned down, and it's going to take me 90 days at least to get this restaurant open. So I'm going to get me a truck, and I'm going to put a warming cabinet in there and I'm going to cook the product in my other restaurants, and I'm going to sell within my trade area that chicken. And I'm going to put a little clucker, like a little chicken, in there that I could push as we drive through the community. And people were following me in that truck, 6'5", and in this truck. And I sold chicken out of that truck at $1,500 a day, and supplemented the sales that we lost in the restaurant being burned down as we built it. And as we built it back, based off of the throughput, traffic, problems that we had with that restaurant, because as I said, most restaurants were built for 600,000, and we knew we could do $1 million there. Then I made some adjustments as far as customers coming and going and so forth, and we were able to make those adjustments. I would go to Baseball and Boardwalk, load that truck up, drive through the community, my ADI area, my particular area for that restaurant, and sell chicken, hospital, all State Farm, different places, and then come back to the restaurant and sit there in the evening to sell the rest that we had left and let people know we were coming back. So the restaurant was doing $1 million when we burned down, right? Well, when we reopened, we did 2.5 million. 2.5, because we let the community know that we were coming back. We were able to make the adjustments as far as rebuilding that restaurant and recreate the things we need. I took the employees that I had at the restaurant, put them at the other two restaurants so they could continue to work and then lose them and so forth, which built confidence between the employees and us as an owner. So all of that was done not because I'm smarter than anybody else, it's because of the experiences that I've gone through in life, athletics, and so forth, that I was able to take those skills and put them to work at that particular instance. And that's one of about 8 to 10 stories that I use in my speeches as I talk. I don't want to get into each one because I want you to be able to ask me some questions, but that is what you're going through today as student athletes that have made their own business and so forth. Take it serious, work hard at it, know that this is going to pay off for you somewhere. Take on challenging situations as they come, beat them head on, don't dodge them, don't go around them, go straight to them, plan your day, plan your business, entrepreneurship. I saw your entrepreneurial class that is just starting. Several students have done extremely well, and we've got a great program here. So continue to work within the lines of what you're going on there. I may come over here and get some help myself from you. See where you can help me out, grow and get better in my latter career. But those things I think will help you. And rather than going into another particular story, lastly, I just want to thank you for giving me the attention to be able to walk through some of these things. There's a lot more in these 70 plus years that I've been out here dealing with this, and that I'm still working through. We have restaurants, there are 65 restaurants in Tampa, in Miami, and also in Kentucky that we operate primarily in the airport. If you fly through Tampa Airport, we have Wendy's over there, Starbucks, we have P.F. Chang's, Payway, and Columbia Restaurant that we have in the Tampa Airport. Flying down to Miami, we have restaurants down there also. So that career, we're still moving forward with other opportunities. So thank you, and I want to open it up to you for any questions.
As one of the older guys in the audience,
You're not older.
I got to ask you about, it can relate it more broadly to mentorship and everything. But when you mentioned the Colonel, I mean, it is a legend. A lot of younger people, it's just a poster or whatever. But can you tell us a bit more about that mentorship experience with the Colonel and experience involved in the business?
Experience for working with him?
Yeah.
So the Colonel, the face that you see, the advertisement that you see, that was a real guy, probably about this height right here. And if you Google my name, you'll see a picture of he and I together. But he prepared his product. He invented KFC, the original recipe chicken. That's primary original recipe, and gravy is what he experienced, what he invented down in Carbon, Kentucky. He cooked for people traveling north and south on US 1. Well, 75 came along, took all the traffic from 1 over to 75, so he lost his business. But being an aggressive person, and Colonel did a little bit of everything. He was a railroad engineer. He was a what they call a militia in Carbon area. That's where he got the name Colonel from, and so forth. He was aggressive. So all those people that have stopped through, especially those millionaires, if you will, he went out and he sold them the rights, franchise rights, to prepare KFC chicken, original recipe chicken, which is chicken cut into 9 pieces at that time. 9 pieces. Most at home, your parents cut chicken into quarters, right? Well, they cut it into 9 pieces. The breast was cut into 3 pieces, center and side breast. But he was a very aggressive person through life. There's a lot of stories out there about the Colonel, some good, some not so good. I enjoyed my relationship with him because I looked at it from the standpoint of what I was learning. And also, if you will, the Colonel signed my check. So we dealt with it. Anytime things got a little sideways, he had a driver who was with him. I'd always make sure they got him out of there and moving on. This was 2 or 3 months after we were working together, I felt comfortable doing that. But he's a legend in Kentucky. He and Muhammad Ali are the 2 Kentucky legends that you hear most about. So great entrepreneur did a number of different things. KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, all part of now, so eventually turned into Yum. But KFC is one part of that whole group.
Before the next question, I do encourage you to Google that because it's one of the greatest pictures I've ever seen. It's fantastic.
All right. Yes.
You spoke about getting the opportunity to work with the FBI or KFC, and those obviously 2 pretty high positions. Do you think there was something else or something that about you that stood out that got you those opportunities as opposed to others?
I think so. I think that my reputation that I had developed through playing professional basketball and through being involved in a positive way within the community stood out. My connections, in particular in the city of Louisville, which is where I grew up and went to high school and everything there, that all helped out. My education obviously helped out. From the FBI standpoint, any of you that ever think about applying to the FBI, they go all the way back to elementary school and check everything about you. People in the hood coming to me saying, Tim, man, you know, the FBI's here asking questions about you. And that can make people shake, right? so it was an interesting time. But they were only offering $14,500 as a starting salary. I had to leave Louisville and go to Quantico, and then you couldn't come back within 600 miles of your home. They tapped your phone at the time, Jake Hoover and stuff around there. It was a different agency than it is today. KFC I started off at $16,500 at that time, and a lot more security, a lot safer. I didn't have to leave home and so forth. So they internally, I went into KFC to interview for an engineering, real estate and construction job that this friend was the director of, but as they looked at my resume and communicated with me, that's where the training opportunity came about. So once again, that's a person skill set.
I've got a question for you in regards to race relations and some of the things that you went through. Did you ever feel, how did you feel, and how did you manage when you felt as though somebody was judging you improperly based solely on race? And how did you overcome that and to deal with people that you knew maybe were judging you differently than you wanted to be judged?
Well, early on, when the integration started and I went through those situations, and just being a mama, if you will, I learned to not to get too excited about the situation, because I always felt that I was in control of me, and I was in control of my situation, not anybody else's situation and what they may be dealing with, and to be able to segregate what the path that I was traveling versus going off track. So I dealt with people that didn't like me because of my race. The very first time that I got a job in Florida as a franchise manager, I was in charge of like 24 franchisees, and 6 of those franchisees belonged to the KKK. And they actually called the corporate office and said that they didn't want to work with me because of the racial situation. And fortunately, the corporate office backed me up. We had our first meeting. One of the guys showed up with a gun on the table and a recorder working. And by the end of the year, he was hugging me. He put his arm around me because I showed him how to make money. There's no call on money, right? It's green. So, I've always kind of dealt with situations like that, and you run into people who don't like you because of a number of different things. And that's there, it's showing us up ahead today, but you have to deal with it. You can't let it stand in your way. because you can control your own destiny and moving forward.
I'm sure some of them had this question. They may not think it's appropriate to ask in an academic setting, but I'll ask. Who's the GOAT? Is it LeBron or is it Jordan?
Depends upon what you're, for me personally.
For you personally.
Jordan. But talent-wise, I gotta tell you, LeBron is one hell of a talent. It's just a different day. There's different dynamics. There's the game is played differently. The emphasis on the game is different. So, the way I kind of look at things in the big picture is there's decades. You look at each decade, you say who was the best in that decade. Nobody's going to win the number of championships that Bill Russell won. Nobody, and especially in a role. Now guys jump all over different teams and play together and as 2, 3 all-stars here. But sure.
So many are trying to figure out what they want to do, and your life took different twists and turns, and you pushed yourself. Could you just pass on the importance of maybe trying something that you're fearful of and then gaining confidence?
Yeah. Yes. Don't never be afraid to fail. Understand that failure is not final. When you fail, you can always step back and evaluate what went wrong and be able to fix that and go back and go at it again. I don't know too many successful people that have failed at least once or twice or 3 times. I consider myself as our business as being successful, but I bankrupt 2 restaurants. I got bankrupt at TGI Fridays here in Lakeland. I had to close down and bankrupt. But you bounce back from that, you learn from it. And there's only a certain amount of time that you put up with something that's not being successful. So if it's not there, you gotta know when to fold them, hold them, and move on. And just make sure you walk away unscathed. I think I was mentioning earlier in the podcast, in developing businesses, you let each business stand on its own rather than being in a group. And it's better, in my opinion, to be successful with a smaller group of restaurants, speaking of restaurants, than having 100 restaurants and that 20 of them are not performing well. And they'll take the whole thing down. So do your due diligence as you grow and evaluate the situation and whether it's going to be beneficial to you.
I've seen your work ethic and your passion for sports and business helps you become more successful. But timing has also played a huge part of your success. When you were finished playing with the ABA, did you think about trying to travel to play overseas? Was that hard for you to give up the game, or did you just know it was time to move on from the game and transition into the business world?
Well, the answer to that question is real simple. I was married. Okay? So that, it took 2 people to make that decision. I decided that, from the stability of what I'd gone through in those 3 years, that I didn't want to continue to do that. Still want to play, but I didn't want to do that. And so my ultimate goal was to be a teacher and coach. I had no business, was not my ultimate goal. Teacher and coach is what I wanted to do. So that was the opportunity, and that's what I did. I did it with passion and became very successful in the coaching, state championships and so forth. But then along comes children. And you got to make more money, and so you got to start looking for other opportunities to make more money. It is a path that I took.
Can you talk about your coaching being an addition? Your personal, you talk about players you admire by a decade. How about coaches or a coach? Somebody you.
There's been a lot of coaches that I admire, but I got to go. My own personal coach, Guy Strong, who is a coach in Kentucky, that played in Kentucky, who was, in those days, he was pretty tough-minded, cold-blooded, but he showed love in his own special way, and he prepared us for the games, and we didn't have the greatest talent in the world, but we knocked down some pretty good teams. So coaching to me is someone who is actually is a good coach, meaning technically, but also cares about his players. Is tough, straightforward with them, and demands a lot. But it all works out as one big family. You can walk away and you feel like you've learned something, even if you're the 10th person on the bench. That you've actually learned something that you can apply. Because everybody can't be a star. It's part of being a team. So as a coach, you got to figure out how to use everybody that you have on the team to make that engine work. So I can't call any particular coaches that stand out there. Yes.
What would you say is like key factors of the teams that you won a national championship on? What led that team to win?
Working, everybody understanding what their contribution to the game plan was. You knew what your particular job was, and you did it, and you sacrificed some areas that you may want to be the guy that takes the shot, but you understand that setting that pick to get the guy open is just as important as making the basket and winning. You know, so being a part of the team, even if you're the weakest link on the team, it's all important. It's all very, very important. And for the full gamut of the players, 10, 12 players, is practice. Because the harder you work in practice with that starting five or that starting group to challenge them, it pays off for the bigger picture and everybody succeeds. If you don't have that camaraderie, if you don't have that teamwork, if you're not working together, you're not going to be successful. I don't care if you have a superstar on the team, it takes the person at the 10th, 8th, 7th person on the team to make it work. So it has to work in teamwork. You got to work together, and that's the team thing. But that's key factor for me is camaraderie, working together, understanding the game plan, and executing. Yes, sir.
As it relates to business, was it harder for you to feel like you became successful or sustain your success?
Sustaining would be the harder piece, because each year you're trying to beat the year before performance, all from top line down to bottom line. So as you go through, you're looking at what has happened in the past, blips in the road, understanding that there's going to be a rough period. There's going to be a restaurant that burns down. There's going to be COVID that comes along. There's going to be traffic changes. There's going to be something. So you have to plan on that and be able to focus on how to be able to achieve versus what you've done in the past. It's just like sports. You win a championship, but hey, the season starts again next year, and you're not champion anymore. You know, you're defending champion, and everybody's coming at you hard. You know, so I always like developing a business in a competitive area, because that's where the traffic is coming in. So I have to have an opportunity to go after that traffic, to be able to, if there's a McDonald's across the street, and McDonald's has a special running with a coupon, bring that coupon to KFC. I'll give you a discount on it at KFC. And I want to get you in to show you that I've got a clean restaurant, I've got a great service, we're going to take care of you, and get that turnaround and come back again within a week or two versus 65, 70 days. Yes, ma'am.
You seem like a very relational leader in talking about your career from the beginning, from the sports and further on. what qualities do you look for in the people that you hire? So what are some of the qualities that you look for in those people?
Basically, the same qualities is what I look for. In our business, restaurant business, you've got to be able to communicate. You've got to be able to maintain eye contact. You got to be able to do all of the things that we demand within the business, such as appearance. I can't stand the baggy pants, the earrings, the tattoos, and all of those things, that are out there today. My goal, if our business is to, you gotta put your best foot forward. You gotta make your customers feel comfortable. And everybody that walks in that restaurant they're making eye contact with everything that's going on. Plus they can smell what's going on. So you've got to make sure the restrooms are clean. You gotta make sure that the customer service, eye contact, attention, being polite, and all those things that are on the overheads. I call it the overhead side of the counter, right? To take care of these people that are paying their hard-earned money. You can't be 100% perfect, but that's the goal, to be that way. So that same drive, if you give me an employee and he's with me 9 months, I got him. Because they're either with me and with what we're trying to do, or they're not gonna make it. It's business.
All right, well, thank you for the good questions. Thank you for attending, and especially thank you, George. We really appreciate it.